and welcome to our lesson about film versus novel. So you've probably seen this metaphor before where people will compare the book to the film and say the book was so much deeper and the film is just the tip of the iceberg. And I myself actually feel that way most of the time, but I want to challenge your thinking a little bit and perhaps think about it like this. Sure, the book goes deeper. You have the author's creativity and the editor's creativity, and you have just even the reader's imagination that they bring to the table. But what about what gets built on top of the proverbial iceberg? You've got all of the actors and their creativity, and the costuming and makeup and the sound effects and the screenwriter's creativity and more means to tell the story. And in that sense, maybe the film can be just as rich as the book. Why are we learning about film, you might be wondering? This certainly is not a film class, but here's what this is about. Analyzing stories is our ultimate goal, whether that's a story through a novel, through a poem, through a speech, through a movie. And this is a 7th grade standard. The idea is to help you view television and film in a new light. What we want is for you to think critically about the media that you consume. So first, let's talk about how mood and tone are conveyed. Now, in writing, as we've been learning about throughout the school year, since you can't hear sounds and music or even tone of voice when you're reading a book, what the author does is use words to set the tone and create and convey a certain mood. Well, how does that work in film? In film, the director uses something called cinematography techniques to help the reader, or in this case, the viewer, have a better understanding of the author's purpose and tone and intended mood. What is cinematography? Cinematography is the art of visual storytelling. Cinematography techniques are the methods through which a director conveys the mood and tone of a scene, and that's what we are interested in today, analyzing those methods. We're going to be moving through this pretty fast. If you find that this is going too fast, obviously please feel free to rewatch the video or look at this PowerPoint, which will be included in the resources folder in Schoology. In order for us to understand cinematography and be able to analyze them, we need to go through the following: camera shots and angles, sounds and music, lighting and color, gestures, facial expressions and acting, and special effects. We're going to go through those one by one in a very broad way. So let's start off with camera shots and angles. We need to figure out why would a camera angle matter and how would that contribute to the telling of a story. Some vocabulary that you're going to need to know, and at a very basic level, you don't need to have like the best technical understanding of all this. We want to talk about some different shots: wide shots, medium shots, and close-ups, and those we refer to as camera shots. And then we want you guys to also know about camera angles: high angle, low angle, aerial view, and worm's eye view. So those are angles. Let's go into a deeper look at different camera shots. Camera shots, it's the amount of space seen in one shot or one frame. So you've got like an extreme wide shot where they're really just giving you a big picture view of like maybe a landscape that helps you zero in on setting. Versus these medium shots where you can kind of see who's involved. Contrast that with the close-ups. The close-ups are less about the setting and more about the character and the emotions on the characters' faces and that kind of thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is camera angles. It's all about where the camera is placed. So you have the camera above the person, and that would be a high angle. If the camera is straight on at the subject, that's a straight angle. And if the camera is below the subject, we'd call that a low angle. Let's take a closer look at high angles. Remember, it's all about where the camera is. The camera is high above. The camera is high above looking down on the subject. High angle, what does that achieve? Okay, now let's look at low angle. The camera is really low, and that's where we get like the double chin shots of everyone. The camera is below the subject. We also have bird's eye view, which we call aerial view, and you get a really good overall view of what's going on. And a worm's eye view, which is really interesting. Maybe it's not used very often. Think about this. Why would camera angles and camera shots be important? How do they add to the viewer's experience? I already said some things about wide shots contributing to the viewer's sense of setting, close-ups contributing to the viewer's sense of the character, and then you've got camera angles that are high above the subject, camera angles that are low below the subject. How does that all add to how we experience the film? The next thing we're going to talk about are sounds and music. Why would a sound effect matter, and what impact does the film's score have? The film's score is the music, the background music. Here's what to notice. If you hear a crescendo, the music gets louder and louder and louder. versus a decrescendo, the music gets quieter and quieter and quieter. That all really contributes to the mood of a movie. How about the types of music, whether it's like really fast, busy music or really slow ballroom dance music or something like that? And then what about sound effects? You might have small sounds like just little footsteps or rain pitter-patter or crickets chirping in the background, but then you also have those large sound effects like gunfire and explosions and punching and fighting sounds. So all of those you're going to want to take note of. Moving on to lighting and color. Ask yourself, why would lighting matter? Does that impact a scene? Lighting impacts the scene in a tremendous way. Here's what to look for. You've got cool tones where maybe it looks like it's sort of like greens and blues, purples, blacks, and grays. And think about what that might symbolize and how that might make you feel as you're watching it. Versus those warm tones, those reds and oranges and yellows. How does that make you feel when you're seeing a scene that's all in warm tones? Think about when the director decides to have a blinding bright light in a scene versus a dull, gloomy, dark amount of light in a scene. The feel of a scene due to the lighting is something that you always want to watch out for. The director is purposely using those techniques to make you feel a certain way. Okay, think about this. Why would music, sounds, and lighting be important in a scene? How do they add to the viewer's experience? Moving on. Gestures, facial expressions, and acting. Why does the acting matter? And how do an actor's gestures impact a scene? Here's what to look for. The emotions that you see on the actor's face, the facial expressions, the tone of their voice, whether it's loud or quiet, whether it has sarcasm to it, okay, whether they're sobbing or whispering or just speaking or yelling, the way they deliver their lines. Think about their movements. They might have large movements like running, like large actions like that, or they might just have a small amount of movement, just tapping a finger. That's such a small thing, but when the camera zooms in on that, you know that character might be feeling anxious or something like that. They're trying to convey an emotion. Also the costuming and makeup. So they go through trying to look a certain way to play their character in the movie, all to make you understand what's going on in the scene. Special effects is one of the really fun ones to analyze. Ask yourself, why do special effects matter and how do special effects enhance the experience? So think about illusions and visual tricks that might be happening, special graphics that we have nowadays, especially in our modern movies. Atmospheric effects, like maybe there's rain and fog and wind. Whether that was really happening while they were filming or whether that was all fake and made on set doesn't matter because it's made to look real. So if it's a rainy day, and they're filming that, why and how does that contribute to the story? Also, thinking about costume and makeup again, like blood and burns and bruises or dirty faces or something like that, all of that is supposed to make you understand the story in a certain way. And then there's other effects, like the walls are moving or there's fires or explosions or people are flying or something like that. And then fantasy movies gets all kinds of special stuff going on in it. We really want you to look out for all of that. Why does any of this matter? Guys, analyzing the cinematography techniques that a director chooses to employ will help you to view the film in a more meaningful way, and it will enrich your experience. There is a reason why we cry during emotional moments in films. There's a reason we jump and get spooked in horror films. Nothing the director ever does is by accident. Every single sound, sight, movement, moment, and feeling has been orchestrated and specially planned. It is all manipulated to make viewers feel a certain way as you're watching, versus an author working with word choices on the page. The film director is an important person to know about. So just like we analyze literature by referring to why the author might have made certain choices, with film we refer to why the director might have made certain choices. Essie Hinton was the author of The Outsiders novel, and we have studied her a little bit, and we've read about her, and we've read articles about her, and we've seen little video clips about her and as she wrote the book and why she wrote the book. In the same way, we want to take a look at the director of The Outsiders film. Francis Ford Coppola was the director, and he's directed many things. Pretty famous director. Here's a little bit more about him. He's an American film director, producer, and screenwriter. He is considered to have been a central figure in the new Hollywood wave of filmmaking. Now, here's the process. What we're going to do in order to really analyze the cinematography techniques over the next couple days, what we'll do is reread a scene from the novel. Then we'll rewatch that scene in the film, just a couple minutes. Then what we'll do is we'll compare and contrast the two And then take it a step further by analyzing the cinematography techniques, because we've already analyzed the author's techniques in the book. Today, what we're going to do is look at the church fire scene together. And we're going to model and demonstrate how to compare and contrast this scene in the book with the scene in the film. I want to run through it for you guys so that you understand what it is that we're looking for you to do when you compare what's in the book for the church fire and what's in the movie for the church fire. We'll analyze the impact of the cinematography techniques in this scene probably tomorrow. And then next week and maybe the next day, you're going to do this whole process again, but with the Dali death scene. You'll have the church fire scene as your model and example. Hopefully being able to analyze film at a high level will help you to enjoy film and appreciate it in a deeper way.